Have you ever wondered if the people around you are really showing their true colors, or if they're simply putting on a show? In today's fast-paced, image-driven world, recognizing what's authentic and what's just an act can feel almost impossible, but it doesn't have to be. In this video, I'll reveal a powerful secret, a hidden technique that allows you to see straight through people's masks, spot hidden intentions, and build deeper, genuine relationships. Stick around until the end because the final insight might completely transform your perspective. If you're excited about uncovering life's hidden truths, make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and join our community dedicated to meaningful conversations and life-changing insights. In nearly every interaction we have, whether it's among friends, coworkers, family members, or even strangers, people often present themselves in ways they believe will be most socially acceptable or advantageous. It can feel at times as though the world is one giant stage play, with each individual stepping into the spotlight wearing a carefully constructed mask. This might sound cynical, but there is an undeniable element of performance in many of our daily encounters. From the corporate meeting where everyone nods politely yet silently harbors their own agendas, to the friendly neighbor whose subtle body language suggests something far different from the warm words leaving their lips. Recognizing this gap between outward presentation and inner truth can feel disorienting, especially if you've ever been taken in by someone's facade. However, once you learn to read the subtle, often unconscious cues people give off, you quickly realize that much of life's show is transparent to those who know where to look. In this journey toward deeper understanding, we will explore several powerful insights drawn from philosophical teachings, particularly Stoicism, and from real-life encounters. These insights will help you discern what lies beneath the surface of spoken words. You'll find that becoming proficient at reading people is not just about protecting yourself from deceit. It's also about fostering richer, more genuine connections with others. For when you truly understand another person's motivations, fears, and hopes, you become better equipped to empathize with them. You move away from mere judgment and toward a place of clarity and compassion. But let's not overlook the ethical considerations. These insights should never be employed for manipulative purposes. The truest aim of Stoicism, after all, is self-mastery and virtuous action. Our intent should be to understand, rather than to exploit, to see clearly, rather than to condemn. As you engage with the material presented in this multi-part article, remember to keep your moral compass firmly aligned with empathy, integrity, and the pursuit of genuine human connection. In Part 1, we'll begin with two potent strategies. First, we'll examine the Tell Me More technique, which is a straightforward yet remarkably effective way of prompting others to reveal their deeper truths. Then, we'll investigate how a person's behavior toward those they perceive as beneath them speaks volumes about their character. Each concept is illuminated through examples that show how these insights play out in everyday life. By the end of this first section, you'll be equipped with new perspectives on how to understand people more completely, and you'll see how these small strategies can yield major revelations about what truly drives someone. As we proceed, keep in mind that these methods are not about mind games or winning in interpersonal exchanges. Rather, they're about shining a light on truths that would otherwise remain hidden, truths that, once acknowledged, can help cultivate stronger, more authentic bonds. The Tell Me More technique is as unassuming as it is transformative, and its subtlety is precisely what makes it so powerful. At a glance, it's disarmingly simple. When someone shares an opinion, a story, or an argument, instead of rushing to respond with your own perspective, you invite them to continue by uttering those three little words, "Tell me more." You might wonder how such a straightforward phrase could unlock so much depth in a conversation. To understand why this works, reflect on how most people usually communicate. In the typical interaction, each person is listening just enough to figure out when to jump in with their own viewpoint. Conversations often become tennis matches of back-and-forth statements, with each participant mentally rehearsing what they want to say next, rather than fully absorbing the other person's words. By employing "tell me more," you disrupt this norm. You effectively say, "I'm not here just to talk. I'm here to truly hear you." This shift from debate to receptiveness can be disarming. Many individuals are unaccustomed to being truly heard without interruption. They expect pushback, counter-arguments, or a change of topic. When you give them permission to keep talking, they lower their defenses and begin to share more openly. This phenomenon ties in beautifully with the Stoic concept of empathy without attachment. Stoicism encourages us to observe emotions and interactions without being swept away by them. When you say "tell me more," you step outside of your own ego. You're no longer racing to state your case or prove you're right. You become a listener, an observer, and ultimately someone with an extraordinary window into another person's inner workings. It might sound manipulative, but in its purest form, it's not about tricking anyone. Rather, it's about fostering genuine understanding. This technique grants you the chance to witness an unfolding narrative that goes beyond surface-level details. You discover the person's backstory, their emotional triggers, their fears, and their hopes. In real-world settings, be it a business negotiation, a conflict with a friend, or a difficult conversation with a partner, these hidden layers often hold the key to resolving misunderstandings and building stronger bonds. Consider, too, how "tell me more" can feel like an act of generosity. So many people walk around burdened by experiences or anxieties they haven't felt safe to express. When you give someone permission to lay out their thoughts more fully, they might reveal vulnerabilities or aspirations they didn't even know they had. In doing so, they gain clarity, and you gain knowledge, both about them and potentially about yourself. This stands in stark contrast to the fast-paced, debate-driven conversations that characterize much of modern communication. Ultimately, "tell me more" is a technique rooted in respect and curiosity. By withholding judgment and simply prompting someone to keep talking, you're cultivating a space where authenticity can thrive. It's almost like a superpower that doesn't require grand gestures or special training, just the willingness to press pause on your own agenda. And once you've experienced the revelations it can bring, you'll likely find yourself using this approach more often, not just because it helps you gather useful information, but because it fosters a kinder, more introspective way of relating to others. To illustrate the transformative power of this technique, imagine a disagreement brewing between two friends over something initially trivial, like whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Typically, such a disagreement might escalate into a lighthearted debate, with each side trying to convince the other that they hold the superior culinary opinion. One friend might start quoting pizza purists who see pineapple as an outrage, while the other defends the sweet and savory combination as gastronomical brilliance. Usually, neither side truly listens beyond formulating their next rebuttal, so the conversation remains superficial. However, consider what happens if, instead of firing back with a counter-argument, one friend leans forward with genuine curiosity and says, "Tell me more." Suddenly, the subject might pivot away from pizza entirely. Perhaps the friend who hates pineapple reveals that they associate it with a childhood memory of forced meals, where a caretaker insisted they finish their food despite finding it nauseating. Or maybe the friend who loves pineapple on pizza recalls fond memories of family gatherings where experimental food combinations were encouraged, sparking a treasured sense of togetherness. In either case, the conversation has moved into far deeper emotional territory. Something that began as a trivial disagreement has now touched on childhood experiences, family dynamics, and personal preferences shaped by formative moments. Through this simple invitation, "Tell me more," the friends gain a new appreciation for each other's perspectives. They might still disagree on the culinary merits of pineapple, but they walk away with a richer understanding of the experiences driving those preferences. This anecdote highlights the essential core of the tell me more technique. You give the other person the room to explore their own stories, often uncovering layers of meaning neither party expected to find. Beyond personal relationships, this approach can be immensely beneficial in professional contexts as well. Let's say you're in a negotiation for a business deal. Rather than charging in with demands or trying to dominate the conversation, you use "tell me more" to let the other side lay all their cards on the table. People in negotiations often anticipate confrontation, so when you adopt a calm, curious stance, they tend to reveal more details, perhaps even parts of their strategy. They let down their guard just enough to share the motivations behind their terms, any deadlines or pressures they might be facing, and what they hope to gain beyond merely financial considerations. This can be extraordinarily revealing. You learn not just what they want, but why they want it. Armed with that knowledge, you can craft a compromise or proposal that addresses their underlying concerns, leading to a more amicable and successful outcome for both sides. The reason all of this works is that humans, despite our complexities, crave validation and understanding. We want to feel that our experiences matter. The tell me more technique satisfies that need by creating a microenvironment of non-judgmental attention. It's a soothing balm to the hurried, often disjointed manner in which we typically communicate. In a Stoic sense, you are momentarily removing your focus from the external need to assert your viewpoints, focusing instead on the internal practice of empathy and compassion. The result is that conversations become more collaborative, more revealing, and ultimately more humane. From a Stoic perspective, the tell me more technique elegantly embodies the principle of observing without attachment. Stoicism, in many interpretations, encourages practitioners to detach from their immediate emotional responses and the compulsion to be right. Instead, Stoics aim to view situations as objectively as possible. By inviting someone to elaborate, particularly in moments of potential tension or disagreement, you offer them space to voice their full spectrum of thoughts and feelings without interruption. This cultivates a sense of calm within yourself because you are not focused on reacting. Rather, you are focused on observing. In doing so, you exemplify what it means to respond rather than to react. Another Stoic element at play here is the recognition of what is within our control versus what is not. You cannot control what someone else thinks or feels, but you can control how you engage with that person. When you say, "tell me more," you choose a path of active curiosity, effectively removing any adversarial energy from the conversation. You are no longer trying to control their viewpoint. You are acknowledging that they have the autonomy to hold whatever opinion or belief they do. All you are doing is learning about it. This approach can also serve to reduce tension, which is beneficial in moments where emotions run high. The person speaking may relax and begin to realize that they do not need to defend themselves as aggressively as they might have thought. At the same time, you free yourself from the burden of proving you are right or that your viewpoint is superior. You step back and gather information, gleaning insights that could be extraordinarily helpful later, not just for winning an argument, which isn't the true goal, but for reaching a deeper mutual understanding. Moreover, from the standpoint of self-improvement, a key aim in Stoicism, every time you employ this technique, you practice patience and humility. Instead of dominating the conversation with your perspective, you allow it to breathe. You practice the discipline of listening. Over time, this discipline can translate into other aspects of life, making you a calmer, more empathetic individual who is less likely to be tossed around by external events. By repeatedly exercising this tell me more muscle, you train yourself to be comfortable in silence, to be a better listener, and to approach conflicts with an open mind. It is a quiet skill that yields powerful results, not just in how it helps you read other people, but also in how it shapes your own character. This is the core Stoic lesson. Real strength isn't in overpowering or out-arguing someone, but in maintaining a clear, composed understanding of both the situation and the people involved. When you see the conversation for what it is, a chance to connect, to learn, and possibly to help others feel understood, you tap into a wellspring of personal power that doesn't rely on external validation. That power, ironically, often results in people trusting and opening up to you all the more, precisely because they sense you're not out to prove or force anything. Instead, you're there to engage in authentic dialogue, which is one of the purest forms of human connection. Moving from conversation techniques to broader behavioral cues, the second key insight revolves around observing how an individual treats those who hold less power or status. This practice extends beyond ordinary courtesy and speaks directly to someone's fundamental character. While it might be reassuring to watch how someone interacts with us personally, that can be misleading if we hold some form of value or influence for them, status, skills, money, or connections. In other words, they have an incentive to be polite or accommodating. If you truly want to unmask a person's ethics and genuine nature, you need to shift your focus toward their interactions with those they believe they can ignore, dismiss, or exploit without repercussions. This idea can be unsettling because it pokes at a deeply ingrained social behavior, the tendency to kiss up and kick down. A person might act as though they are supportive, polite, or generous, but only when there is something to gain from it, or when a higher power might penalize them for poor behavior. However, if a waiter, delivery person, or junior team member can't really affect their standing, you may see a sudden drop in courtesy. They might speak rudely, skip the social graces, or even treat the individual as if they are invisible. And while it is possible to have occasional bad days or slip-ups, a pattern of disrespect towards those in lesser positions is a glaring red flag. Observing this dynamic is crucial for your own well-being. Someone who consistently belittles those with less status or who are perceived as having fewer resources may eventually direct that same scorn or mistreatment your way if circumstances change. You might currently be receiving respectful treatment, but if that respect is contingent on your perceived utility, it's not genuine. You're dealing with a person who is calculating their behavior, not someone who holds empathy and moral values as non-negotiable cornerstones of their personality. From a Stoic angle, this observation also helps clarify how attached a person is to external factors like power, success, or social standing versus intrinsic virtues. A Stoic approach recognizes that external hierarchies are fleeting, and virtue lies in consistent kindness, wisdom, and integrity, regardless of who is watching or who the person is interacting with. People who live by virtue rather than by opportunism will show kindness or at least respect to everyone. They don't see wait staff or junior employees as people to be dominated. They see them as fellow human beings worthy of baseline dignity. This stance stems from an internal moral compass, rather than from a desire to be admired or a fear of punishment from higher-ups. By carefully watching these interactions, you sharpen your ability to judge the depth of someone's ethical roots. It's not about being hypercritical or constantly seeking to catch someone in a moment of weakness. Instead, it's about building a more nuanced understanding of the people around you. After all, forging meaningful connections or partnerships, be they professional, romantic, or platonic, often hinges on mutual respect. And if someone cannot extend courtesy to all, they may lack the emotional and ethical framework required for deeper forms of trust and collaboration. Nothing drives this point home more clearly than real-life stories. Perhaps you've encountered or heard of a scenario like the following. a colleague or friend who is effortlessly charming in social settings, always quick with a compliment or a jest, especially around those who have sway or could benefit them. They can hold court with eloquence and make higher-ups feel like they're the center of the universe. At first glance, you might think, what a charismatic, well-mannered person. But then you catch them in a different context, such as when they think no one is watching, or when they're speaking to someone who holds little to no influence in their professional or social circle. Maybe you see them roll their eyes at the janitor or bark commands at a barista while ordering coffee. The difference in their behavior is stark, and it reveals something significant. Their outward warmth was not an intrinsic part of their character. It was merely a performance tailored to those they believed deserved their good behavior or could give them something in return. In one particularly revealing example, a manager might treat their team with a veneer of politeness in the presence of higher management. They speak calmly, listen, or appear to listen, to feedback, and exude a team-oriented spirit during official meetings. However, when the higher-ups leave, they transform into a tyrant, micromanaging, berating employees for trivial mistakes, and generally disregarding any notion of respect. These jarring shifts in behavior are often quite alarming to witness, particularly if you've only seen the good side of the person in question. It underscores the reality that their kindness or professionalism is contingent upon an external authority's watchful eye, rather than a genuine internal principle. The reason this discrepancy matters so much is because it signals a fundamental lack of moral integrity. True character should be evident regardless of the social status of the people one interacts with. If someone only behaves admirably in certain contexts, it's worth questioning whether their goodness is simply a strategy, a means to achieve approval or avoid negative consequences. This recognition can save you a lot of heartache or disillusionment down the line. Whether you're looking to form a business partnership, enter a romantic relationship, or cultivate a closer friendship, it's invaluable to know whether someone's benevolent behavior is genuine or conditional. Conditional kindness suggests that if circumstances change, say if you lose some of your social capital or your job title, they may quickly shift their treatment of you to something far less pleasant. When you carry a Stoic mindset, you aren't merely noting external behaviors. You're also trying to discern the motivations behind them. Stoicism calls for consistent ethical action, treating others fairly and kindly not because they can help you, but because it aligns with virtuous living. Thus, whenever you observe a person being needlessly cruel, dismissive, or condescending to someone who is in no position to retaliate, you have a clear sign that they are led by impulse, arrogance, or opportunism, rather than by virtue. Knowing this allows you to set boundaries for yourself, deciding consciously how closely you want to be involved with someone who might harbor such attitudes. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously remarked that it's not the events in our lives that define us, but how we respond to them. One such event is the presence of someone with less power or status. Our response in these situations speaks volumes about our internal moral compass. From a Stoic point of view, all individuals deserve respect by virtue of their shared humanity. Hierarchies of power, wealth, or social standing are external variables, fragile and ever-changing. True virtue isn't swayed by these fluctuations. Therefore, if someone's behavior shifts drastically depending on the status of the person they're dealing with, it signals that their moral framework is not rooted in steadfast principles, but rather in external validation or exploitation. To read people effectively, maintain a watchful eye on how they engage in everyday interactions, especially with those who cannot offer them any immediate advantage. Notice the words they choose, their tone of voice, even their body language. Do they look the person in the eye? Do they speak politely or rudely? Are they aware of the other person's comfort, or do they dismiss them entirely once they have what they need? These telltale signs are not trivial. They're windows into someone's deeper ethical orientation. In employing this knowledge, keep in mind the Stoic call for compassion. Observing poor behavior isn't a free pass to become judgmental or condescending in return. Everyone is on their own path, shaped by myriad personal struggles, past traumas, and societal pressures. Sometimes, people act out of insecurity or fear rather than outright malice. Nevertheless, acknowledging that reality doesn't mean you should ignore toxic behavior or fail to protect yourself from it. It simply means you approach the truth with a level of emotional equilibrium, recognizing that we all have flaws, but also recognizing that some flaws, particularly those that involve demeaning others, can be major red flags for any close relationship or collaboration. As we close part 1, remember the 2 key insights discussed. First, the Tell Me More technique highlights how curiosity and genuine listening can illuminate the inner workings of another person's mind. It's a deceptively simple phrase that can dissolve barriers and encourage open dialogue in a way that typical debates often fail to do. Second, watching how someone treats people in lesser positions, whether that is in a professional setting, a social gathering, or everyday interactions, provides a reliable measure of their intrinsic moral code. Keep these observations in mind as you move through your day, and you may find yourself gleaning far more nuanced impressions of the individuals you encounter. In the upcoming sections, Part 2 and Part 3, we'll continue to build upon these ideas, delving further into how a person's past shapes their present, how sudden changes in tone can reveal hidden motives, why true honesty emerges when people think no one is watching, and how strong emotions point to deep-rooted values and insecurities. For now, take a moment to reflect on the importance of truly hearing people out and assessing their interactions with those who appear to have less power. These strategies align beautifully with a Stoic lifestyle, helping you navigate the complexities of human behavior from a place of calm observance and moral clarity. Having explored 2 crucial strategies in Part 1, namely the Tell Me More technique and the importance of observing how people treat those in lesser positions, we now turn our attention to the next 2 behavioral insights. These insights will guide you further in deciphering the underlying motivations, insecurities, and emotional landscapes that shape how people act. While Tell Me More illuminates a person's internal world through prompting deeper conversation, and watching their interactions with those in subordinate roles can reveal their moral compass, there are additional layers to consider. In particular, someone's past experiences play a pivotal role in molding their present-day behavior, often more than they consciously realize. By delving into how formative events, family background, or personal traumas influence a person's choices, we gain a clearer picture of who they truly are. This knowledge is invaluable not merely for reading others more effectively, but also for understanding the sometimes baffling ways in which they respond to everyday stresses or joys. The third key insight, therefore, emphasizes that the past is a blueprint for the present. By coming to grips with this concept, you can better navigate relationships, professional or personal, without resorting to naive assumptions or snap judgments. Instead, you can cultivate empathy and clarity, stepping outside your own immediate impressions to see the broader tapestry of someone's life. However, we must pair this understanding with practical tools for identifying when someone is withholding information or outright lying. While delving into someone's past can reveal recurring patterns and emotional triggers, you also need to be attuned to the subtle signals people give off in real time. That's where the fourth key insight, recognizing sudden changes in tone, comes into play. Whether in a calm discussion or a heated debate, the moment someone's vocal mannerisms shift, it often signals that they are grappling with internal conflict. This conflict might arise from hiding a piece of information, or feeling uneasy about the version of events they are presenting. Together, these two insights, understanding how the past shapes the present and detecting tonal shifts that suggest falsehood or hesitation, will deepen your ability to read people with nuance. As was the case in Part 1, the goal here is not to judge or manipulate, but to observe and understand. Stoicism teaches us the art of seeing events as they are, free from personal bias, which allows us to respond with wisdom and composure. By applying a Stoic lens, we strive to foster connections that are grounded in honesty and mutual respect, rather than in illusions or misplaced assumptions. As you read the paragraphs that follow, reflect on your own experiences with friends, colleagues, or family members. Perhaps you've noticed how certain individuals repeat the same mistakes, seemingly unable to escape the influence of their upbringing or past disappointments. Or maybe you've been in a situation where someone's voice suddenly dropped an octave or became unusually high-pitched, and you sensed intuitively that something was off. These moments are more than curiosities, they're invaluable clues if you take the time to interpret them correctly. Let us now embark on a deeper exploration of these ideas, examining real-life examples and Stoic principles that can guide you in recognizing when the past is steering someone's behavior and how sudden vocal shifts can unveil hidden truths. When we say that someone's past is key to their present, we are acknowledging that people's histories exert a powerful influence over their current behaviors, attitudes, and emotional responses. It is tempting to assume that individuals can easily move on from earlier life events, whether those events were triumphant successes or painful traumas. However, our psyches often internalize such experiences in profound ways. These internalizations might manifest as core beliefs, a sense that one must continually prove oneself to gain acceptance, or perhaps an entrenched fear of abandonment that surfaces anytime a close relationship deepens. In many respects, the past acts like a script for the present. Whether a person is consciously aware of it or not, they may be replaying old narratives, reenacting established coping mechanisms, or perpetually seeking to correct prior hurts. From a Stoic standpoint, understanding this script is an exercise in objective observation. Instead of hastily labeling someone as difficult or untrustworthy, we can pause to consider, what is the underlying storyline driving what experiences shaped their worldview? The answers might not excuse harmful or toxic behaviors, but they do frame them within a context that fosters greater empathy and strategic decision-making. One might think of a coworker who appears excessively defensive whenever their work is critiqued. On the surface, you might perceive them as thin-skinned or stubborn, but a deeper look at their background, perhaps they grew up in an environment where they were constantly criticized by a parent or authority figure, can shed light on the root causes of that defensiveness. The moment criticism arises, it touches a raw nerve that was formed long ago. Knowing this backstory does not mean you have to tiptoe around them or tolerate unprofessional outbursts. Rather, you can approach discussions with a tone that acknowledges their sensitivity without compromising on the necessary feedback. In personal relationships, the impact of the past can be even more pronounced. Imagine dating someone who consistently sabotages budding romances the moment they start to feel serious. Their partner might be baffled. Why do they pull away just when everything seems perfect? Again, by exploring that individual's history, you might discover that they suffered a deep betrayal or heartbreak in a previous relationship, leading them to fear intimacy and preemptively end relationships before they can be hurt again. Recognizing such patterns is crucial to deciding whether patience, communication, or even professional help could break the cycle. If you find yourself on the receiving end of this self-sabotage, understanding it can offer some emotional relief. You come to realize that the action is less about you personally and more about unresolved wounds. In the workplace, people often carry past job experiences, positive or negative, into new roles. A manager who was once burned by an untrustworthy employee might adopt an overly rigid and controlling style with their current team. A salesperson who thrived under a supportive mentor might replicate that nurturing approach when they, in turn, manage new recruits. Once again, the past sets the stage for present behavior. If you aim to lead, collaborate with, or befriend this individual, it's immensely helpful to understand the historical lessons they're carrying into your shared environment. At the intersection of Stoic wisdom and psychological insight, we learn that no one is simply a product of random, present moment choices. We are all shaped by the experiences and emotional imprints of our histories. As you read people's actions and reactions, ask yourself, what life events might have led them here? Which scars have yet to heal, and which victories have empowered them? That reflective pause, free from moral judgment, equips you with a deeper understanding of both the individual and how best to engage with them, thus maintaining your own equilibrium and maximizing the potential for positive interactions. Real-life examples often bring these concepts to life more vividly. Consider the story of a high-performing employee named Sarah, who had consistently demonstrated excellence in her tasks. Despite her strong track record, she seemed to carry an undercurrent of anxiety. During team meetings, she would appear fidgety, taking copious notes even on topics that were not directly related to her responsibilities. She rarely took breaks and always seemed on edge. When praised for her accomplishments, instead of simply saying thank you, she would quickly follow up with an admission that she could do better. A deeper look into Sarah's history revealed that she came from a family that placed an enormous premium on achievement. Mediocre grades in school were not tolerated, and any perceived failure was met with stern disappointment. While Sarah had clearly internalized a strong work ethic, she also carried forward an enduring fear of letting others down. This hidden driver manifested in her near-obsessive dedication to triple-checking her work and constantly seeking external validation. Knowledge of her past may not eliminate her anxiety, but it certainly provides a lens through which her behavior becomes more understandable. It also suggests that offering her calm reassurance and constructive feedback, rather than abrupt critiques, could help mitigate her stress and potentially unlock even greater performance. In a more personal arena, think about John, who always seemed to sabotage promising friendships. Whenever he got close to someone, he would abruptly withdraw or pick fights over trivial issues. After a pattern of strained or broken friendships, he sought therapy. Through reflection, he discovered that his parents' tumultuous divorce, when he was a teenager, had subconsciously taught him that close relationships inevitably led to pain. Consequently, every time a friendship began to feel emotionally significant, he instinctively found a way to push the person away before they could leave him first. Understanding this background does not make John's behavior any less damaging for the people around him, but it does shift the conversation from a simplistic "John is just flaky" narrative to one that acknowledges his deep-seated fear of abandonment. By recognizing the roots of his actions, John can start to work on altering his responses, though it might take time, introspection, and possibly professional guidance. In yet another scenario, a person's past struggles might inspire uniquely positive actions. Consider a manager who once felt neglected and unappreciated at a former job. When promoted to a leadership role in a new company, they become deeply committed to recognizing the contributions of each team member. They might institute policies like Employee Spotlight of the Week, or ensure that everyone, including interns, has a voice in team meetings. Their past has sensitized them to the emotional impact of being overlooked. As a result, they strive to create an environment where no one feels the isolation they once endured. Here we see that history can drive not just negative patterns, but also constructive ones, that foster a healthy organizational culture. Each of these examples underscores the principle that the past weaves itself into the present in ways both profound and subtle. Some individuals might project their unresolved traumas onto new relationships, while others might be propelled by earlier sufferings to become kinder, more inclusive leaders. As someone seeking to read people accurately, acknowledging these influences sharpens your empathy and situational awareness. This is precisely what the Stoic approach to human behavior encourages, a stance of measured observation, free from rash condemnation, that facilitates a more realistic and holistic understanding of why people behave the way they do. From a Stoic vantage point, the recognition of how the past shapes the present aligns seamlessly with the concept of understanding the things we can control versus the things we cannot. We cannot change what someone has experienced in their formative years, nor can we erase the emotional residues of those experiences. What we can do, however, is choose how to respond to those residues once we see them manifest. Stoics often emphasize the importance of living in alignment with virtue, wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. This alignment calls us to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. If you notice that a colleague is sensitive to criticism because of past traumas, you can exercise wisdom by delivering feedback in a compassionate manner, ensuring it remains constructive rather than abrasive. This doesn't mean sugarcoating the truth or undermining your own boundaries. It simply means you're applying emotional intelligence in your approach. Similarly, justice in Stoic terms involves treating others fairly. By acknowledging the weight of someone's past, you avoid making hasty judgments that reduce them to their worst moments. Temperance and courage come into play when deciding how much you're willing or able to accommodate another person's triggers, and whether you have the inner strength to set healthy boundaries if their behavior becomes detrimental. Another Stoic tenet relevant here is self-awareness. Just as you aim to understand how the past shapes others, it's valuable to reflect on your own life story. What moments, triumphant or tragic, have molded your worldview or triggered your insecurities? Are there patterns of reaction you display that might seem inexplicable to others, but make sense in light of your personal history? By examining these questions, you not only gain a better grasp of yourself, but also refine your capacity to empathize with others navigating their own struggles. Empathy, in this regard, is not a passive feeling of pity or sympathy. It's an active form of intelligence that informs your interactions. When you engage with someone whose behavior is influenced by past wounds, your Stoic practice can help you maintain calm and composure even if their actions are challenging. Rather than escalating the situation, you practice equanimity, acknowledging that much of what you're seeing is an echo of an earlier narrative, not necessarily a personal attack or inherent malice. This heightened level of understanding might not solve every conflict, but it often leads to more constructive solutions. That said, it's crucial to avoid using someone's past as an excuse for continuous harmful or toxic behavior. Stoicism advocates personal responsibility. We may acknowledge that a person's past shaped them, but adults still carry the obligation to address how those influences guide their present behavior. In your interactions with others, discerning whether they are genuinely striving to overcome destructive patterns or simply using them as a shield for poor conduct is key. If you find that someone repeatedly dismisses responsibility under the banner of "that's just how I am," you may need to reevaluate the extent of your engagement with them. By weaving these Stoic principles into your day-to-day interactions, you develop a balanced approach to reading people through the lens of their past. You extend understanding without relinquishing your own boundaries. You practice empathy without sacrificing discernment. Most importantly, you gain the freedom to interact more authentically, liberated from the confusion that often arises when we take others' actions at face value without probing the deeper reasons for their conduct. While understanding how a person's history shapes their present actions provides a valuable big-picture perspective, it is equally crucial to stay attuned to more immediate, real-time cues that indicate deception, discomfort, or withheld information. One such cue is a sudden change in tone, a shift that can manifest as a lowered volume, a raised pitch, an unnatural pause, or even an abrupt modulation from cheerful to defensive. These vocal indicators are not foolproof evidence of dishonesty, but they frequently signal a subconscious struggle to maintain a narrative or hide internal anxieties. Observing these tonal shifts can be challenging if you're not used to focusing on them. Many people, especially in a fast-paced or high-stakes environment, pay little attention to voice modulations because they are preoccupied with the content of what's being said. However, Stoic teaching encourages us to be meticulous observers of reality. This includes not only the words being spoken, but also how they are delivered. A sudden pause or a quiver in someone's voice could reveal that they are weighing their next statement carefully, perhaps because they feel uncertain or are telling a half-truth. Alternatively, a spike in pitch might indicate heightened stress as the person tries to justify something they themselves don't fully believe. In personal relationships, noticing a tonal change can alert you that your partner, friend, or family member is feeling cornered or uneasy. Maybe they're not outright lying, but they might be evading something or not telling the full story. Instead of reacting with anger or immediate confrontation, a more stoic approach would be to remain calm and observant, giving them the space to either clarify or correct themselves. In business settings, these tonal shifts are particularly telling. Consider negotiations or performance reviews, where stakes can be quite high. You may find that a client maintains a confident, steady tone when discussing budgets and deadlines, only to falter slightly when asked about details of a process they haven't fully planned out. Such a hesitation could be your cue to probe more deeply, ensuring you're not committing to an agreement without having all the crucial information. Of course, caution is warranted. Voice modulation isn't always related to deception. People might speak differently for reasons of fatigue, nervousness, or cultural habits. Hence, while a sudden change in tone can serve as a red flag, it's best interpreted alongside other context clues, body language, facial expressions, or even the timeline of how the conversation has unfolded. Nonetheless, this insight remains powerful. If you learn to detect these vocal shifts and remain composed enough to analyze them, you gain a real-time mechanism for identifying moments of conflict or potential falsehood. This is where the Stoic quality of measured response comes into play. Instead of allowing your own emotions, perhaps suspicion or irritation, to hijack the exchange, you gather and interpret the signals methodically, deciding on the best course of action based on a more complete understanding. To fully appreciate how sudden changes in tone can reveal a person's inner state, consider a few everyday scenarios. First, picture a casual conversation among friends. One friend, Alex, is narrating a story about a recent vacation. Throughout most of the story, Alex is jovial and animated, describing the scenery, the cuisine, and the people they met. Then, someone asks a direct question. Did you stay within your budget? In that instant, Alex's voice, which had been bright and enthusiastic, becomes slightly staccato and quieter, punctuated by hesitant sounds. While Alex might still be smiling, the tone shift indicates a sudden emotional or cognitive stress. Maybe Alex overspent and doesn't want to admit it. Or, perhaps, they're embarrassed about a financial mishap. This tonal transition, seemingly small, can be quite telling if you're attuned to it. In a workplace setting, suppose you're part of a team developing a project with a tight deadline. At a group check-in, everyone is giving updates. When it's your colleague Michael's turn, he starts confidently. "I'm on track with the coding, we've tested the first module and it's stable." But as soon as someone probes, "How about the second module? Have you done the preliminary testing yet?" Michael's voice suddenly rises in pitch and he speaks faster, throwing in phrases like, "We're looking into that," or "It's on the radar," without offering concrete details. This shift might mean that Michael hasn't started the second module at all, or that he's encountering unanticipated problems he's not comfortable disclosing. The Stoic approach in this scenario would be to note the change without jumping to rash conclusions. Rather than accusing Michael of lying outright, you might ask follow-up questions in a calm, neutral tone to discern if he's simply anxious or if he's deliberately withholding critical information. In intimate relationships, these tonal shifts can be even more emotionally charged. Picture a partner who is usually relaxed and open, but when questioned about a specific text message or direct message, their voice suddenly gets tight or defensive. They might say, "It's nothing really," but the delivery contradicts their words. Their sudden reluctance to maintain eye contact and the tension in their vocal inflections suggests there's more to the story. Again, the Stoic principle would be to maintain composure, neither accusing them nor ignoring what you've observed. You'd seek clarity, ideally creating a space where honesty feels safer than evasion. Even in nonverbal contexts, such as online chats or voice messages, people's vocal patterns can shift in subtle ways. They might ramble more than usual, insert awkward laughter, or speak at an uncharacteristically slow or rapid pace when addressing certain topics. These shifts may flag discomfort or uncertainty, clues that further questioning might be warranted if the topic is crucial. Across these varied examples, the critical lesson is that tone often betrays the truths we aren't willing or prepared to put into words. While body language and facial expressions are commonly discussed in books on communication, vocal shifts deserve equal attention. Much like a musical composition, a person's voice carries nuances of pitch, tempo, and timbre. By tuning your ear to these variations, you become adept at hearing the subtext behind the speech. Such skill can dramatically enhance your effectiveness in negotiations, deepen your empathy in personal relationships, and help you steer clear of deceptive or manipulative situations. From a Stoic viewpoint, being aware of these tonal shifts in conversations dovetails with the broader goal of living thoughtfully and morally. Stoicism teaches us to pay attention to the present moment, recognizing that every interaction offers an opportunity for clarity and virtue. By noticing when someone's tone shifts abruptly, you're training yourself in the discipline of observation. You're refusing to sleepwalk through social or professional exchanges. Instead, you engage consciously, gleaning more complete information. But heightened awareness isn't meant to turn you into an interrogation machine. Stoic wisdom counsels moderation in all things, and that includes how you respond to potential signs of deception or uncertainty. Yes, a sudden change in tone may alert you to deeper issues, but remember the Stoic principle of compassion. People sometimes stumble over their words or shift their tone for benign reasons. Maybe they're simply tired, anxious, or socially awkward. Instead of casting an immediate verdict or letting suspicion fester, the ideal Stoic response is to remain calm, gather additional evidence, and approach the matter with a blend of kindness and firmness. If you suspect the person is withholding something critical, you can ask clarifying questions without accusatory undertones. This approach respects both your own integrity and the dignity of the other person, recognizing that misunderstandings and half-truths can arise from complex personal motives. Additionally, remain mindful of your internal reactions. Stoics emphasize that we can only control our own attitudes and actions. If you become irate or defensive the instant you sense a lie, you may inadvertently create a hostile environment that discourages truth-telling. By maintaining emotional equilibrium, you leave the door open for more honest dialogue. If it turns out your suspicions were misplaced, no harm is done. If they turn out to be justified, you're in a better position to address the issue constructively. Concluding Part 2, we see that combining an understanding of personal history with the ability to detect vocal shifts significantly refines your ability to read people. Knowing how someone's past influences their present behaviors prevents you from interpreting their actions too narrowly or condemning them without context. Simultaneously, staying vigilant to real-time cues like sudden changes in tone ensures that you're not blindsided by hidden intentions or glossed over truths. Both of these approaches are grounded in a Stoic framework that champions measured observation, empathy, and moral responsibility. In Part 3, we will further enhance these reading people skills by examining why people are most genuine when they believe no one is watching, and how their emotional reactions can illuminate their deepest values and priorities. These final two insights will round out our 6-part exploration of human behavior, arming you with a more holistic understanding of what shapes an individual's actions and how best to navigate relationships in both personal and professional spheres. For now, reflect on the lessons from Part 2. Notice how people's pasts color their present, listen for shifts in tone, and let these clues guide you toward deeper insight rather than hasty judgment. By doing so, you not only become more adept at discerning truth from fiction, but also cultivate a form of empathy that recognizes everyone's journey is shaped by unique histories and present moment stressors. This empathetic awareness is the cornerstone of meaningful connection, a result that Stoicism and any sincere moral philosophy would celebrate. With a solid grasp of how an individual's past can shape their present actions, and a trained ear for sudden shifts in vocal tone, we now progress to the final 2 insights that complete our exploration of reading people. Understanding that people are most honest when they think no one is watching, and recognizing that emotional reactions often reveal priorities. These insights illuminate what might otherwise remain hidden beneath social niceties, power dynamics, or even self-deception. By weaving these observations into your daily interactions, you gain a broader and more nuanced perspective on human behavior, one that blends empathy with clarity and is guided by the Stoic ideals of wisdom, integrity, and self-control. The 5th key insight, that people's most genuine selves often emerge when they believe no one is watching, underscores a universal truth about human behavior. Social scrutiny can dramatically affect how we act in the presence of an audience, whether that audience is a single individual we want to impress, a group of colleagues, or a broader social network. We might consciously or unconsciously alter our behavior to align with perceived expectations or to avoid criticism. It is in the unguarded moments, when we believe no one significant is observing, that our true dispositions slip out. The 6th and final key insight, that emotional reactions reveal priorities, ties everything together. If you watch closely, you'll notice that people's strongest emotional outbursts, whether of joy, frustration, anger, or excitement, usually center on issues or principles they hold most dear. These emotional flare-ups act as an unfiltered spotlight on what genuinely matters to them. By paying attention to these moments, you cut through superficial remarks and decode the authentic hierarchy of values guiding their decisions. Integrating all 6 insights can feel like learning a new language. The Tell Me More technique fosters deeper conversations, and observing how someone treats those of lesser status uncovers genuine respect, or lack thereof. Delving into their past gives context for current behaviors, while tuning in to tone fluctuations reveals potential deceit or unease. Finally, catching people in moments when they think they're unobserved and noting their emotional triggers rounds out the full picture of who they are. By practicing these methods, you are not only refining your skill in reading people, but you're also bolstering your own inner resources for patience, empathy, and wisdom. Keep in mind, these insights aren't just about interpersonal savvy. They align strongly with the Stoic aim of cultivating a virtuous, discerning self, capable of interacting effectively and kindly with the world. As we delve into the final two insights, think about how they resonate with your personal experiences. Perhaps you've stumbled upon someone doing an act of kindness when they believed no one was looking, drastically changing your impression of them for the better. Or maybe you've noticed how a friend's eyes light up whenever a particular cause or hobby is mentioned, revealing a passion they might not voice openly. Such observations, when made deliberately, can profoundly reshape how you connect with and understand the people around you. Let's examine these final insights closely, enriched by Stoic wisdom, real-world examples, and a focus on practical application. The principle that people are most honest when they think no one is watching can be traced to one of the most universal aspects of human behavior: our desire to be seen in a favorable light. Whether it's impressing a boss, maintaining a certain reputation among peers, or adhering to social norms, the presence of an audience often acts as a spotlight under which people put on their best public face. This isn't inherently negative. Conforming to social expectations can be part of respectful coexistence. However, it does mean that what you see in public settings might only represent a fraction of a person's genuine character. The real test often comes in those unguarded moments. Picture, for instance, a coworker who is always genial and cooperative during team meetings, but morphs into a bitter gossip the minute the team leader steps out. When they think no one of importance is listening, they unleash candid, often harsh comments about colleagues. Such behavior contrasts sharply with the friendly persona they display when they know they're being observed. This discrepancy highlights a crucial ethical and behavioral truth. The more someone believes they are beyond scrutiny, the more likely they are to act in accordance with their true dispositions or unspoken biases. From a Stoic perspective, one's aim is to foster a character so consistent that it does not waver based on who's watching. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once advised that we should act as though the gods or wise individuals are perpetually observing us, not for fear of punishment, but to ensure we maintain a noble moral standard at all times. People who embody such integrity remain respectful and gracious, irrespective of the setting. However, many individuals have yet to reach that level of self-governance. They're still swayed by whether they believe their actions will be rewarded or punished. So if you observe them when they perceive no immediate social or professional consequences, you get a glimpse of who they genuinely are. This concept can be extended to a variety of scenarios. In a romantic context, a partner might consistently perform romantic gestures when they know it will be noticed or praised, yet fail to demonstrate any consideration in private moments. Alternatively, you might discover that someone who rarely speaks up about charitable work is quietly volunteering at a local shelter every weekend simply because they find personal fulfillment in serving others. The unpublicized nature of such acts signals an authenticity that no amount of public performance can replicate. Recognizing these honest moments requires a specific type of observational skill: subtle vigilance. You don't want to pry or surveil people excessively. That veers into invasive territory and defeats the spirit of Stoic respect. Rather, by being present and attentive in your day-to-day interactions, you can catch organic glimpses of people's unrehearsed behaviors. Notice if they treat a restaurant server kindly when it seems inconsequential to do so, or if they pick up trash on a sidewalk with no one around to applaud them. These small, private gestures speak volumes about internalized values. Moreover, you can reflect on your own behavior under the lens of this principle. How do you act when you think no one will ever find out? Are your values and actions in sync, or do you notice discrepancies? Engaging in this self-check is deeply Stoic, as it reinforces personal accountability. It's not just about reading others more accurately, it's also about ensuring that your public and private selves converge toward a single, morally coherent identity. Therefore, the next time you wish to truly gauge someone's character, be it a friend, colleague, or potential romantic partner, pay close attention to those fleeting moments of unscripted behavior. Even a brief instance of alone time action can reveal more than hours of carefully curated public conduct. To illustrate how candid moments can shed light on someone's true nature, consider an example from a workplace environment. Suppose you have a coworker named Danielle who consistently presents herself as the epitome of cooperation and teamwork during office hours. She compliments her superiors publicly, takes visible steps to support her colleagues, and even volunteers to help on projects that aren't strictly in her domain. On the surface, she appears to be the model employee. However, one evening, you happen to return to the office late to pick up something you forgot. You find Danielle alone in the break room, berating a janitor for an alleged oversight. Her tone is condescending, and she uses language you've never heard her use in team meetings. Suddenly, the polished veneer fades, replaced by a harsher, domineering persona. This brief window into Danielle's behavior, when she believes no one of consequence is around, tells you more about her character than countless hours of orchestrated politeness in meetings. It reveals that her public persona might be a calculated mask, designed to curry favor with her bosses and coworkers she deems influential. With the janitor, whom she perceives as having little power to affect her standing in the company, she exercises none of that courtesy or kindness. This stark contrast highlights why these unguarded moments are so instructive. They represent behavior unscripted by social pressure, where a person's deeper impulses are allowed freer rein. Outside the workplace, candid moments can also appear in social settings. Take the example of a friend Mark, who often brags about his generosity in group chats or social media posts, donating to various charities, helping people move apartments, and taking pride in championing community causes. However, you notice that these acts always come accompanied by a public announcement, a social media update, an email to the friend group, or an offhand mention about how busy he is doing charitable stuff. Then one day you hear through a mutual acquaintance that Mark has been refusing to pay back a small sum he borrowed from someone he no longer associates with. There's no public record of this debt, and apparently Mark is in no hurry to settle it because it offers him no social or reputational advantage. This discrepancy between the public philanthropist image and private reluctance to do the right thing illustrates how motivation can shift drastically once the social spotlight is off. In contrast, you might encounter a friend like Laura, who rarely talks about altruism or social causes. She lives quite simply, seldom draws attention to herself, and doesn't appear eager for accolades. Then, by accident, you discover she's been anonymously funding a scholarship for underprivileged students in her hometown. Her personal finances are modest, but she still allocates a portion of her earnings to this project each year. Laura never mentions it publicly. In fact, she seems slightly embarrassed when you find out. While Mark might garner more applause on social platforms, Laura's quiet act reveals a depth of empathy and generosity uncorrupted by the desire for praise. These examples serve as powerful reminders. It's often in private or less observed moments that we see who people truly are. Public persona can be influenced by fear of judgment or hunger for approval, but away from that stage, motivations become more transparent. Of course, no one is morally perfect in all contexts. Even the best of us can have lapses. Still, by watching for these candid moments, we gain meaningful insights that can guide our relationships and help us navigate the complexities of personal and professional connections with greater wisdom. From a Stoic angle, the idea that someone's most genuine self emerges when they believe no one is watching intersects with the call for integrity in both private and public life. Stoicism posits that virtue, embodied by wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, should inform our actions regardless of external surveillance or potential social benefits. Marcus Aurelius famously advocated acting as though a wise mentor were constantly observing your deeds, not to induce paranoia but to encourage moral consistency. In modern parlance, we might say, character is what you do when you think no one else will notice. Observing others under these conditions, therefore, can be a glimpse into their moral fiber. This principle doesn't necessarily mean you should lurk around to catch people off guard. Rather, it's an invitation to be more perceptive in everyday situations. If you find yourself in a position to see someone interact with those they deem unimportant, or if you notice how they conduct themselves when the spotlight is off, take note. These observations can guide your decisions about trust, collaboration, or how closely you want to involve them in your personal life. A Stoic-minded approach suggests that while we can glean important truths from these candid moments, we should also apply temperance and avoid a rush to judgment. Humans are complicated, and a single observed instance may not define a person entirely. However, consistent patterns of behavior, like routine kindness or routine cruelty when unobserved, are strong indicators of someone's moral orientation. Furthermore, by recognizing that most of us modulate our behavior based on social feedback, you can cultivate greater compassion as well. If you see that someone strives to appear virtuous in public, but struggles privately with anger or insecurities, a Stoic approach might involve empathizing with their internal conflict. Perhaps they genuinely want to be better, but haven't fully integrated those virtues into their private life. Such individuals might benefit from gentle guidance or understanding rather than pure condemnation, though caution is always warranted if their hidden behaviors negatively affect you or others. Importantly, this insight about unguarded honesty applies to self-examination as well. Ask yourself, how do you behave when you believe no one significant is watching? Are your private actions consistent with the values you espouse publicly? Do you treat strangers or those who have no immediate influence over your life with the same respect you'd show a friend or superior? Self-reflection of this nature is a cornerstone of Stoic practice. The aim is not to punish yourself for any discrepancies, but to recognize them and take conscious steps to align your private behavior with your publicly stated principles. This self-directed approach leads to genuine personal growth, making you a more trustworthy individual who doesn't rely on external oversight to act ethically. In essence, the candid moments principle is a two-way street. It helps you gauge others' authenticity and encourages you to strive for your own. In a Stoic framework, the ultimate goal is not to expose or judge, but to understand, learn, and, when necessary, protect yourself from those whose true nature may be harmful. Paired with the other insights we've discussed, this awareness of unguarded honesty becomes a powerful tool in navigating relationships with clarity and compassion. The sixth and final insight completes our journey through the core strategies of reading people. Paying attention to emotional reactions, particularly the strong or unexpected ones, as these reactions illuminate what an individual values most deeply. Emotions often function as immediate, unfiltered responses to perceived threats, opportunities, or moral imperatives. When someone reacts vehemently or experiences an emotional surge, whether it be anger, joy, fear, or delight, it's usually because something significant to them is at stake. Emotions are, in a sense, a direct line to a person's most cherished priorities, cutting through the veneer of rational explanation or social performance. Imagine, for example, someone who generally maintains a calm demeanor but suddenly becomes uncharacteristically upset when discussing a particular political issue. While their outward presentation is one of tranquility, the intensity of their reaction to that issue points to an underlying conviction. It might be linked to personal experiences or moral stances that they seldom reveal. Their anger or passion in that moment could signify a deeply held belief, one so important that they cannot help but react strongly when they perceive it being threatened or misrepresented. Notably, it's not only negative emotions that reveal priorities. Suppose you notice a friend's eyes light up and their speech accelerate whenever they talk about a certain philanthropic project. The surge of positive emotion signifies that this project resonates with an important part of their identity. Maybe the belief that helping underprivileged communities is a moral duty. Likewise, if a colleague exhibits unusual giddiness whenever a new client contract involves innovative technology, it might indicate they're driven by intellectual curiosity and love the thrill of exploring cutting-edge solutions. Emotions, in these contexts, act like a radar for value systems. They show you not only what a person wants, but also how they've likely structured their worldview around achieving or defending it. For Stoics, understanding emotional reactions is key to both self-awareness and empathy. While traditional Stoicism is sometimes misunderstood as calling for the suppression of emotion, its true intent is to prevent destructive emotions from hijacking reason. Observing and interpreting emotions, both in ourselves and others, offers powerful insights into what matters most in life. By learning to read these emotional cues in others, you gain the ability to engage more effectively, steering conversations or negotiations toward deeper mutual understanding. A crucial caveat is that emotions can sometimes be misleading if taken in isolation. People might erupt in anger due to misunderstandings, or they might exhibit joy that is purely situational and not reflective of deeper values. Yet, when a person consistently reacts with heightened emotion to particular topics or scenarios over time, that consistency is revealing. It indicates a sustained personal stake in those matters. Throughout the remainder of Part 3, we'll look at how to interpret these emotional signals responsibly and ethically, staying aligned with the Stoic approach of measured response, empathy, and respect for individual autonomy. Emotions, after all, can offer a treasure trove of information, so long as you know how to sift through them carefully. To see this principle in action, consider a friend named Hannah who becomes visibly agitated whenever the topic of financial inequity arises. She might clench her jaw, raise her voice, or tear up as she discusses how society undervalues certain professions. Observers might dismiss her as too sensitive, or say she's taking things too personally. Yet these strong emotional cues hint at a deep-seated value. Fairness and social justice hold significant weight in her worldview. Perhaps she grew up in a financially unstable household or witnessed unfair wages firsthand. Understanding the roots of her emotional response allows you to converse with her more effectively, recognizing that her agitation is not simply drama, but a manifestation of deeply held convictions shaped by her experiences and empathy for those in challenging economic situations. In a professional context, imagine a team leader, Raj, who typically fosters a laid-back atmosphere in the office. However, during a team meeting about upcoming deadlines, Raj suddenly becomes tense and uncharacteristically sharp in his tone. He starts stressing about timelines and deliverables, almost to the point of paranoia. This abrupt shift might be an overreaction to a looming project, but it also reveals a hidden priority. Meeting deadlines or maintaining efficiency is crucial to his sense of professional identity. Perhaps he was burned in a previous job where a missed deadline resulted in severe consequences, or he's under pressure from higher-ups that he hasn't fully disclosed. In any case, Raj's emotional response is a flag pointing to what he values most in his role: competence, respect from superiors, or a smooth team operation. To interpret emotional flare-ups effectively, maintain a stance of observational neutrality at first. Rather than immediately labeling someone angry or stubborn, Ask yourself what they might be protecting, defending, or striving for in that moment. A calm follow-up question, like, "What concerns you most about this situation?" can yield valuable revelations. It often prompts individuals to articulate priorities they weren't consciously aware of, bridging the gap between raw emotion and rational explanation. Another technique is to look for patterns over time. If a colleague repeatedly shows visible frustration whenever cost-cutting measures are mentioned, it might mean they're worried about job security or the negative impacts of those measures on product quality. If a loved one consistently lights up with joy at the mention of travel plans, it signals a deep love for exploration or cultural immersion. Each repeated emotional reaction acts like a puzzle piece, helping you assemble a clearer picture of their internal landscape. From a Stoic vantage, your aim is twofold. First, to gather enough observational data to read the situation accurately, and second, to respond in a way that balances empathy with personal boundaries. Emotions can be intense, and you need not bear the brunt of someone else's meltdown. However, by understanding the underlying cause, you can diffuse tension more compassionately or channel their emotional energy into constructive dialogue. Finally, remember that while emotional reactions can be highly revealing, they don't automatically justify harmful behavior. Some people might use intense emotional outbursts to manipulate or control situations. Your Stoic toolkit, composure, balanced assessment, and self-discipline helps you remain centered. You can acknowledge the signals their emotional state is sending while not allowing yourself to be bullied or swayed unethically. This balanced approach respects both your own integrity and the complexities driving the other person's feelings. As we conclude Part 3 and the entire trilogy of insights, take a moment to integrate everything we've covered. Across all 3 parts, we introduce 6 core methods for reading people. Tell me more technique, fostering deeper conversations by prompting the other person to elaborate, revealing motivations and vulnerabilities. Observing treatment of those in lesser positions, gaining insight into genuine character by noting how a person behaves toward individuals they believe to have minimal power or importance. Understanding past as key to the present, recognizing that people's histories, including traumas and triumphs, significantly color their current actions. Attuning to sudden vocal shifts, detected lies, discomfort, or uncertainty through abrupt changes in tone or speech patterns. Unscripted honesty when unobserved, realizing that authentic behavior surfaces when people think no one of consequence is watching. Emotional reactions reveal priorities, noting that strong emotional responses often indicate core values, fears, or aspirations. Each of these techniques aligns with Stoic principles of measured observation, empathy, and moral clarity. Stoicism doesn't aim to transform you into a detached spectator who merely diagnoses others from a distance. Rather, it encourages the cultivation of wisdom and virtue, qualities that help you navigate relationships with greater honesty, kindness, and discernment. By learning to read people effectively, you're better positioned to choose the right collaborators, set healthy boundaries in friendships and romantic partnerships, and offer genuine support where it's truly needed. However, in honing these skills, it's vital to remember the importance of self-reflection. Ask yourself whether you behave consistently in both public and private spheres. Examine your own emotional reactions to see what they reveal about your priorities. And when you communicate, strive for sincerity and coherence so that your tone, words, and actions align with your true intentions. This sort of integrity not only makes you more predictable and trustworthy to others, but also grants you peace of mind. In practice, applying these insights means staying observant without becoming invasive, being empathetic without sacrificing discernment, and acknowledging the complexities of human behavior without lapsing into cynicism. People are rarely the simplistic heroes or villains we might imagine. They're shaped by their past, by social pressures, and by their individual fears and hopes. Understanding this complexity can foster compassion, which is a cornerstone of many philosophical and spiritual traditions, including Stoicism. If there's a single unifying lesson to draw from these 6 insights, it might be this: genuine human connection arises from truly seeing and hearing one another, unencumbered by pretense and superficial judgments. By sharpening your ability to read people, you become an agent of deeper understanding, rather than deception or manipulation. You meet others where they truly are, instead of where they pretend or aspire to be, and in doing so, you create an environment, be it in your personal life, your workplace, or your broader community, where authenticity and mutual respect can thrive. With that, our exploration of these 6 powerful insights, infused with Stoic wisdom and practical examples, comes to a close. You now possess a well-rounded framework to perceive the hidden layers of human behavior. May it guide you toward more insightful, compassionate, and meaningful relationships in all facets of your life. We've explored powerful strategies to read between the lines, understand hidden motives, and uncover genuine character, even when people think nobody's watching. But the real magic here isn't just about spotting deceit or avoiding toxic interactions. It's about building authentic connections that enrich your life. Imagine the confidence of navigating relationships with clarity, empathy, and emotional intelligence. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What was your biggest aha moment from this discussion? Have you ever discovered someone's hidden truth or experienced a situation that aligns with these insights? Drop your comments below, like this video if it resonated with you, and don't forget to subscribe. Let's keep exploring life's fascinating secrets together.